You guys are going to love this episode. Dwayne Killings from Marquette University coming on to talk about the Coaches for Action initiative that Positive Impact is getting involved with. It should be an interesting story. Harmony, what's going on? Tell your dad I said what's up. UConn always showing love. Husky for life. Thanks for getting on. Coach, give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. Cool. Welcome to episode 53 of the Positive Impact Podcast, where we talk about all topics relevant to the game I love. I am your host, Terrell Dozier, and we are live at 5 with a very special guest on a very special episode of the Positive Impact Podcast, Marquette University Associate Head Coach, Mr. Dwayne Killings.
What's up, man? Good to see you, man.
Coach, how we doing?
I'm doing great. Man. It's a good Sunday here in Milwaukee. Beautiful sunny day. I'm chilling.
Awesome. Hold on one second. Sorry about that. Had
No,
you on
you're
my
good.
Bluetooth. Yeah,
Nah, no
good, man.
worries. No
Thanks for
worries.
coming on. Yeah, thanks for coming on. We've been going back and forth for a minute, man, and I've been eager to have you on to talk to you about everything. We've had some prior conversations, but
Yeah.
I'm excited about the work that you're doing right now. So I definitely needed to get you on to talk about it. But first things first, I want the people to get to know Dwayne Killings a little bit, before we jump into our Coaches for Action stuff. So talk about growing up in Amherst, Massachusetts, around UMass basketball, and
Yeah.
talk about how you fell in love with the game.
Yeah, I was really lucky, man. Like, I grew up at a time when Coach Calipari was building the UMass program back up, and it was amazing. I mean, time stopped when I grew up in Amherst just because that team was growing. Lou Rowe, Marcus Camby, Dante Bright, Charlton Clark. I mean, I could go on and on and on. But what I saw as I was growing up was the hard work of 4 men, 3 assistants, and a head coach just going to war, getting players, winning basketball games. And I was the ball boy of the team. So I fell in love with it. Bruiser Flint, gave me just basically a seat at the table, let me kind of take a snapshot of what was going on, hearing the sound, seeing the energy, seeing the people. And I loved every second of it. And I knew I wanted to be in basketball because of Bruiser. I didn't know exactly where my journey was going to take me, but that's where, my love affair with the game really, really started. And it's all because of my dad, one, throwing me in the car and dragging me to the gym, but two, Bruiser gave me a lot of access, and I fell in love with it. And I chased the dream. I worked for the Charlotte Bobcats for 3 years out of college. Then I spent 3 years at Temple in the operations capacity. Then I moved to the city, moved to your spot. I lived in New York City for a year, worked for the NBA League office. That's where I met your guy, Kamani Young.
Okay.
It's been tremendous to me in this business. And then from there, I went back to Temple as an assistant coach for a few years, spent 2 years at UConn, and now, I'm here at Marquette, and it's been a great journey.
Nah, nice. So you got my boy Samir Torrance out there too.
Yeah. Size the men. We got Samir, we got Jose Perez, we got Luke Fizolix from Stepanak. We got some New York flavor here. I've always had a great appreciation for the city and for the players there. We at Temple, we had Daniel Dingle, played for us there. It was tremendous. At UConn, we had CV, Christian Vital, and Sidney Wilson. I mean, everywhere I've been, we've always been in the city. Because, on the end of the day, I just think the New York players in that market, they want to go to war. They're competitive. They got so much heart. They understand what it's like. And I think being in the Big East, too, you need guys that understand what it's like to win and honor, you know, the tradition that is the Big East.
No question about it. So, obviously, you know, the season got cut short, you know, due to COVID-19. So, you know, as a coach, you know, who would generally be out during this time, especially in July, like this is the busiest time of the year for the coaches that to gear up. But you also missed the April live period. So you've been extremely busy now since the pandemic. Talk about first the obstacles that you faced with recruiting, not being able to go out and travel.
It's been crazy. You know, you're used to, as an assistant, you evaluate players, you go into gyms, you build relationships, but you're laying tracks, really, is what you're doing, you know, throughout the season. You're laying tracks for your program and for your head coach. And your head coach usually follows those tracks when you get to the spring and the summer. And we lost it. There's a lot of kids you want to try to evaluate, try to get in front of. Your talking points, your momentum is all built up, you know, through those recruiting opportunities. And now they're gone. So this whole pause in the world has created a whole new opportunity to build relationships. And I do think guys that are really good, I mean, there's a lot of really good assistant coaches in our business. There's a different opportunity to build relationships on a different level by communicating them on Zoom. I think every coach in the country is zoomed out. I will say that. You know, just Zoom in after Zoom between your staff, your recruiting, everything you're trying to do. But I think there's an opportunity there. And I do think there's a chance to build a real relationship. Although you're face to face, maybe not, you're not 2 feet next to each other, but you are still face to face. You can have hard conversations. You can explain your program, the vision for the kid, how he's going to be able to come into your program, and what you really hope he's going to amplify your program during his journey, whether that's 1, 2, 3, or 4 years. So we've been working hard at it, and I think instead of looking at the negatives, we look at the positives. And you know, we've been fortunate to get a commitment in that time to a kid that understood our program and valued it. And we're trying to keep going. And at the same time, you're still trying to reinvest into your own program and your own players by Zooming with those guys, talking about basketball, your culture. I think you pivot right now and you focus more on the person and the culture because you can't get in the gym and focus on the basketball.
Right. No question about it. Beautifully stated. So with the recruiting, are you guys recruiting more kids out of high school, or are you guys getting into this ever expanding transfer portal and getting guys in that can help you now because you can't really get out and evaluate like you usually would?
Yeah, great question. I think right now we're kind of taking a hybrid model. You know, we have 2 transfers coming in our program. One's immediately eligible. One's going to sit out. DJ Carton became immediately eligible from Ohio State. Really good player. He addressed the need. You know, we lost Marcus Howard, who's probably one of the best scorers, if not the best in the country this past year. So DJ has a chance to come in and take a really big spot. And like you mentioned, Samir Torrance, Kobe McEwen, Greg Elliott, those guys are going to have a chance to be a big part of what we're going to do on the perimeter. Jose is going to sit out this year. But I think Jose addresses, we had a kid, Sakara Min, just super tough, man, played with just heart and grit. We lost that. And I think part of what Sakara did was he gave some of that culture and some of that swagger to us. We're hoping, you know, Jose can bring that. You know, Jose, he's all heart, all grit, all muscle, goes fights, goes and gets it. We need that. You know, to win the Big East, we need that kind of guy. So we're excited to get him. But then we're also bringing in 3 freshmen, Justin Lewis from Baltimore, Dawson Garcia from Minnesota, Osa from Arizona. You know, it was a top 15 class in the country. You know, they're primarily front court players, but super versatile. So I think we're attacking it on both sides. But I think moving forward in this business, because of the potential for players to become immediately eligible by transferring, you got to look at it, because getting a kid that, you know, already has college experience, has been battle tested, it could address a need for you depending on how many guys you're going to graduate, what you're losing, what you need. So I think we're always looking at any opportunity to get our program better is how, you know, Coach Wojciechowski pushes us.
No question about it. No question about it. And, you know, for the viewers out there, you know, a lot of them might know Coach Woj from his time at Duke, and what he brought to not so much as a player, but like more of his culture building act. So, you know, when you think about Woj at Duke, you think about Woj slapping the floor, and for defense, that's a culture thing. Like, that's embedded in the culture. Talk about what he brings to the culture. And you're talking about Jose and those guys. They kind of described, the way you described them made me think about how Coach Woj was as a player. Talk about the Marquette culture a little bit.
Yeah, we talk about a few things. One is toughness. I think to win our league, you got to be really, really tough. I mean, to go into whether you're playing Providence, UConn, Villanova, Seton Hall, Creighton, to go into those buildings and get a win, hard to do. To go into Madison Square Garden in March in the Big East tournament with 20,000 fans live on TV, it's hard to get a dub.
Yeah.
So you need guys that are really, really tough. And I think that's one of our main pillars, for what we're trying to do. The second thing we talk about is just being competitive. Sometimes it's going to come down to just me wanting the ball more than you. Me getting a defensive stop more than you. That at its core is who Coach Wojciechowski is. That's the other thing. And then the third thing that we talk about a lot is being selfless. You got to want to do things for other people. It might be bringing a guy to a gym. It might be making one more pass. It might be pushing a guy to do another rep in the weight room. Those things come up every single time on the floor, whether it's in practice or games. Those are things that we really, really stress. But the other thing, we want to have guys in our program that coach can coach, that he can push, that he can motivate, that connect with him, that identify with him, that will allow him to push him to a whole nother level. When I was at, Temple University, we had a kid, Khalif Wyatt, is a hell of a player. Well, what he did, he made us all better because he was just super competitive. At the end of the day, he wanted the ball in his hands and wanted to make plays. So you could draw anything you wanted, but he was going to make the play at the right time. At Marquette right now, what we're trying to do is find guys that can do that and take it to a whole nother level. I think, in our sport, in our league, we had everybody's attention because we had guards that could go get it. We could score in the 80s and 90s. Obviously, Marcus, super entertaining. Sakar, who I mentioned, was a really good basketball player for our program. But now we want to take it to a whole nother stop where we can win our league. I mean, that's what the guys we're trying to find right now are guys that can help us win. And when I talk about winning, it's not just winning a Big East, championship. It's trying to play in a Final Four. I mean, that's our dream. Those are the guys that we want.
No question about it. And so for you, explain to the viewers the difference from being the assistant coach to the associate head coach. What responsibilities go from here to here with the two titles?
Yeah, my first year here, the other two coaches were associate head coaches, Brett Nelson and Stan Johnson. Brett is now at Holy Cross. Stan's the head coach at Loyola Marymount. Two really good guys, man. They could coach, they can recruit, they develop relationships, they understand how to engage alumni, but they helped build this program to where it was. And you're still really, really engaged. Coach leans on you, he listens to you, looks for you for advice and thoughts. But when you move over in that mindset of being the associate head coach, you're locking arms with them. I mean, coach is having really, really tough conversations. Is this the right kid to take? Is this the right play to make right now? I mean, there's times and timeouts, this past year, Stan Johnson, who just got a head coaching job, he handed the clipboard to him. And I'm talking about in key moments in games because he believed that he was ready to be a head coach. And obviously he was because he is one now. And I think luckily for me, coach pulled me aside and said, hey, you're ready to do it. Now you got to do it. Now it's about how you articulate yourself, how you sell yourself. And there's days here, he does a great job of developing us. I mean, he's not a guy that focuses just on him and the players. There's days he's going to say, hey, the first 30 minutes you got practice, you're running it. I want your voice to be the voice that commands practice and runs that. Well, that's for my development, but he also understands if he makes me better, I'll make our kids better, which makes him a better coach. He really understands how to get the most, not only out of his players, but his coaches.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So again, during this pandemic, you faced a lot of obstacles as far as recruiting wise, but, like I'm sure for me, the pandemic also gave you a time to kind of reflect and, when usually you'd be out on the road, like you're home with your family more than you usually would be. So I'm sure you had time to think, and we had a lot going on besides the pandemic. So I want to talk about the birth of Coaches for Action and, everything that's written out there, everything that I've read starts with Dwayne Killings, you know what I mean? And you sitting at home and thinking and talking, and then making a call to Kyle, Coach Neptune at Villanova. Talk about what you were going through after the murder of George Floyd and how you felt about, I need to do something now. I need to get the ball movement. I need to have conversations with people.
Yeah, I think when everything happened, you're trying to process it all. I talked to my father, like, what does this represent? My dad's 68, 69 years old. He's seen so much, right? He grew up in Birmingham, Alabama. He's marched, he's been bit by a dog. He's not one that's necessarily going to stand on a soapbox, but he's seen a lot. But the crazy thing is, he's seen a lot, but he saw a lot at 12, 14, 15 years old. He's still seeing a lot at 68, 69 years old. That's scary.
Right.
Furthermore, my brother-in-law is a mayor in Mississippi. He's been through a lot on that journey.
Yeah.
And I think as I talk to my friends, whether it's people in my community or those same gentlemen you just mentioned, Kamani and Kyle, I thought the big thing that Kyle said to me was like, there's this guilt because you're like, what are you doing? What am I really doing in my space that I operate on? And the business of basketball, beautiful. I got to live a great life. I'm spoiled. I will be the first to admit it. But I will say we have an amazing social currency to impact people, to get a message out, to do all these great things if you choose to do it. Luckily for me, we could instigate that conversation together. So, we started to say to each other, what can we do? Because the biggest motivator for me was, I have a 3-year-old son. My wife is Dominican. He's going to grow up as a black man in all reality, but I don't want him to come to me at 16, 17, 18 years old and say, what did you do during this time? And I said, well, nothing. And he looks at it and I got pictures and I'm saying, I could lead these young men and I can impact these kids' lives, but I did nothing in this moment. That wouldn't be right. So we started talking. We started building ideas. We brought 21, assistant coaches that in reality, the one thing I will tell you is we in our business are taught really not to mess with each other, right? It's compete, compete for the kids, compete for wins. You get on a call and there's 21 guys looking at you. You're talking, you're laughing, you're sharing stories. Guys were almost crying. And all of a sudden you start to realize, man, we could really do something big because everybody's committed to locking arms together and going on this journey. And when you talk about that journey, the biggest thing that we talked about was action. We wanted to create action in our communities, in our programs, with our players. And I think really what it was, all of a sudden you see kids standing up and saying things and articulating themselves and showing that they could be leaders. And you're like, wow. So we had to do something, right? Because we go into their homes, and I've said it a ton. I'm looking right now. Luis Guzman is someone super close to my heart. He's on here. But like when he was coming up in the business, right, and he was a player, we would go and talk to his mom, and we'd say we make him a better man, a better player, and a better student. Well, we're saying the same thing right now to these kids that we have in our program. So if we didn't do anything as assistant coaches, we're not holding up our end of the bargain. Because for me, Bruiser Flint, when I became a basketball coach, when I was getting ready to propose, when I was getting my clothes to be an assistant coach, well, I just did what Bruiser did because that's what I saw. So it's important that we do these things right now because they're going to follow our lead later on in life. So I think what we've decided to do is stand on our own ground, be our own men, have our own voice. The head coaches supported us. The ADs supported us. I think the kids have been super excited. And when we rolled out there, we didn't know how it was going to be received. But by the end of the day, we're looking at the bottom line of ESPN. We're looking at CBS. We're looking at all these different people in the business that really, in reality, they just say, hey, you're doing the right thing to represent your community as Black men. And we have 3 great initiatives. The first is voting awareness, which I think everybody's doing. But we are sensitive learning, how to vote, right, in the presidential election. It's about local voting and how that impacts the communities that we all live in. Voting for a mayor is going to change the shape of a community completely. That's something that we have to educate our kids about. We have a really aggressive campaign that we're going to launch to create a scholarship foundation that we believe is going to, at the end of the day, be an endowed scholarship that I think, again, it's going to impact people's lives. That's where it starts. It starts education. Our players are given this great opportunity to get a free education at some of the best schools in the country, right? When you think about the 11 Big East institutions, well, we want to give people an opportunity to experience that some kids that might not have, but they're just as talented mentally. They may not have the athletic skills, but they have the mental skills to do it, and they can impact the world, times 10 of what we're doing. And then the last thing is the Black Lives Matter PAPs that we've been, working tirelessly on to partner with the Big East to get that on our uniforms that we believe, it's innovative, will be the first league to ever do it. I think it's a strong statement. but it's a statement that's important for our players. I think it's 90% of our players, when you take out walk-ons, are minorities. In addition, our coaches and the communities that we represent, that's something that's going to make people proud, and it's going to help heal people. So we've been excited. We get on a call every night at 8 o'clock on Sundays. And again, we're just trying to take our little corner of the world and impact it and as best we can. But we really want to amplify our message because we have an amazing platform.
Absolutely. Now you absolutely do. And so I want to take everything you said, and now I want to go back and I want to break it down.
Mm-hmm.
It's a beautiful initiative. When I personally saw it, I was looking for something. During the pandemic, this podcast was created out of the pandemic too. So, but when I saw that, I was looking for something to affiliate myself with. And when I seen this on Instagram, it spoke to me. I immediately got on the phone with Kamani. I reached out to you, you know what I mean? So it's just something that came at the right time, you know what I mean? So the first thing I want to ask is, when all this happened, the aftermath of the George Floyd murder, talk about how you guys as a coaching staff address the players on your team. What were the conversations like?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like in our business, I talk to all types of coaches, that assistant coaches, that some work for a white head coach, some work for a black head coach, and everybody approached it differently. I thought, Coach Wojciechowski came to myself and Justin Gainey, who was another black man on our staff, and he really asked what was his advice, for what was our advice for him. That's huge, right? Because he's identifying with the group of people that he knows that's represented in this situation. And we just said to him, listen, don't talk, listen. Let these kids talk. And our kids have deeply rooted experiences and frustrations and confusion that needs to come out. And it may take a while. There may be some silence on that call. And, the beautiful thing about it is he listened and he just did it. And, he started the conversation, about what was going on in our communities, what was going on at home. Because our kids experience two different things. They have their home community and their Marquette community. Those can be two completely different worlds for our kids. And some of our kids, we've rescued them, right? We've given them a chance to experience a really good life outside of the norm for them. But I think as they started to talk, he just kind of stood back and said, wow. And then he immediately said, well, what do I need to do next to help our guys? And we just said, it's some of the things that we talked about with Coaches for Action is sustainability and accountability. Don't just talk about it in July, talk about it in January. Take some time out to address these things when you get deep into the season. Because our belief, and I know mine personally, is that if you're talking about Kobe McEwen, who's and developing as a man, if we can help him develop as a man, he's going to make the layup, with 2 seconds left on the road to win the game because he's a better man for it. He understands how to compete. He knows who he is at his core. That's important. So those are some of the things that we're doing. We talk about, we brought some former players in to talk about just what they're experiencing and going through at different points in their life. Some guys are in their 20s, their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. But that's important for our guys too, because those guys walk the same steps our players presently walk in. They sat in the same locker room. So it's good to know for our kids to know, hey man, there's a lot of other guys that are going through the same struggles at different times in their life. And here's the things that they've seen and done and how they reacted. But guess what? They're successful right now. You got guys that we have a former player that's got his doctorate. He's doing things for the NBA and Lloyd Walton. Amazing guy. I mean, there's guys that are VPs of banks and businesses and doing all these great things that have gone through challenges, but they've stepped up to them day by day. They become leaders in their own right, and they're living an amazing life. And I think Coach has done a great job of instilling those stories to our guys. Just the other day on the call, team call that we have every week, we asked our guys, what are some other things you guys want to talk about? Kobe, who's the kid I just mentioned, he's been tremendous in this space of using his voice, articulating himself, talking on the news. It's been awesome to watch him grow into his space and as a man. But he said, hey, I still want to talk about these things. So cool. Coach said, all right, well, let's figure it out. Who do we need to bring up to help our kids grow some more? And sometimes guys are thinking it, but they're not saying it because they're just not comfortable. That's okay. We need to have conversations where we're uncomfortable because you grow in that space.
Right. No question about it. So now, you guys roll out, you guys get ready to roll out this Coaches for Action initiative. And, you said, listen, Woj was on board, immediately. It's great. I know Kamani had to deal with, Coach Hurley. He's on board. And Jay Wright is on board. And, Coach Cooley's on board with Ivan. But I think there's a different conversation when you have to now go talk to the AD. So like you said, like, I'm the associate head coach at Marquette, and I lock arms. Me and Woj have to communicate all the time. It's a little easier. Now I have to take the next step, or we have to take the next step, and we have to get the ADs on board. Talk about the different conversation that you had with your head coach that you had to have with the AD.
Yeah, so when we decided to launch this initiative and go out into the public, every member had to engage with their head coach and their AD. It's also an uncomfortable conversation to have with your head coach because it's not ball screen deep. It's not about a recruit that you're trying to run around and bring into your program. This is a real life situation. And what if they said, I don't think this is the right thing to do? What do you do? And that was a little nervous. Luckily for us, all the head coaches stepped up. Now, when you go to the ADs, that's a different conversation because you don't, as an assistant, you don't always engage with your ADs on that level. But I think what happened for us is all the assistant coaches got an immediate leadership training that we didn't realize we were going to get. We become better leaders because of this, because now, guess what? We weren't just a part of the conversation. We were creating and dictating the conversation. And not that we're telling people what to do, but we're saying, hey, these are the things that we want to address. This is how we want to go about it. How can we do this? And where do you stand? And what can we do to help you feel more comfortable about it? So it created this new conversation and this new space for us to operate in, where in reality, we can help address some of the things on our campuses that it's not just about our student athletes, it's about the student body as a whole. So it was nervous. I was nervous as heck to first have that first conversation. But then when people turn around and say to you in positions like an athletic director or a head coach, and those people, the leadership capacity that they have at the Big East institution and the Big East level is huge. For them to say, hey, you're doing the right thing, that's even more empowering to motivate us to keep going. And that's one of the things we've always said amongst us. We have to keep going, keep going, keep going, because it's a steady approach to this. Because it's not about getting done the day you want to do it. You got to keep going at it, keep chipping away at it. But I do think that there's the support and there's the need, and I think there's the acknowledgement that this is the right step. Now we have to do it the right way.
Right, absolutely. And so now I want to kind of dive into the initiatives, you know what I mean? And so we talked about the voter registration drive. And anytime I say something wrong, please obviously feel free to correct me. But, one of the biggest nights to have, in college basketball is Midnight Madness.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe that, that's when you guys are trying to roll out initiatives at each of your universities because there's a lot of people there. Talk about what you guys are planning for that to look like. And when you're educating your players on voting, like you said, there's the Marquette community, there's the UConn community, but they might not necessarily be from Milwaukee or from Stores, Connecticut. So are they voting where they go to college, or are they voting in their communities?
Yeah, great question. So, two things. One, I think right now, Midnight Madness could look very different, campus to campus of what's going on, with the pandemic. But we want to create opportunities, again, to amplify the messaging that's going out about voting. And we don't want to own that, in terms of like there's campuses across the country, to include the 11 Big East institutions, that are doing great work. They're doing things on their own. That's not fair for us to sit there and say, well, that was us. It wasn't. But we are coming up with ideas to collectively to say, hey, here's things that also can happen on your campus. Now it's the campus's decision to do what they want to do because they have the best pulse of that. But we do want to try to create some platforms to educate people. And that's where our opportunity really comes in. We're going to create webinars to educate not only our men's and women's basketball players, but all student athletes that choose to log on and get the information and try to grow in understanding, what voting really is. Not just about that presidential election, but there's a lot of other opportunities to vote and exercise that opportunity. And to your question, that's an important question. Well, is it better to vote back in your home, town, in your home state? Because you understand intimately what it's like to live there because you live there. You might not understand, like here at Marquette, living in Milwaukee, you might not understand all the issues of Milwaukee. You probably understand the issues that are going on at Marquette, not so much around you. But that's something important. But then one of the other things we want to throw out, in our dialogue and our meetings are, if our guys all vote together and say it's, in DC, it's in New York, it's in Philly, it's here in Milwaukee, that message goes out, that picture goes out. Well, does that then have a spread effect out to people in those communities to get them to vote? So what's our goal? What are we trying to get accomplished? But we don't want to take away any of our players' moment because that's not fair. We just want to try to encourage, try to motivate people to get out and use this opportunity that they all have.
No question about it. And now the Coaches for Action Scholarship Fund. So this goes to a first-generation minority student, an opportunity to attend any one of the 11 Big East Conference schools, correct? And they must have a 3.0. They must have a 3.0 average. So talk about how you guys came up with that idea. And what I thought was beautiful, there's 21 coaches up in here, and we're not just saying we want to do a scholarship contribute. We're going to contribute first. So talk about how you guys came up with that idea.
Well, we just felt like, and it was actually Ivan Thomas from Providence. Like, when you got skin in the game, you do a little bit more. And it was important that we invested in it. And I think when we invested in it and we put that message out, the league and the leadership, they all knew how serious that we were. And we were passionate. And we were, this wasn't something we were just saying we were going to do and just walk away from it, right, when it gets hard. Because this moment, this pause in the world is why Coaches for Action came about. But now when we go back to reality and we got games and recruiting and scouting, it's going to be a little difficult. We've brought in some people in to help us run the day-to-day, but it was important that we made that investment because, again, that speaks strongly of how serious we are about this, and we want this to be sustainable. So, our goal is that the 21 of us will move on from the Big East at some time, right? But we want to make sure that next wave of guys that coach in our league, they take the baton and they carry it further. But it started with creating a foundation for the foundation of reality, right? You need that thing to grow. And I think when we made that statement and we can articulate that to people, that's how this thing started, now they're more inclined to want to be a part of it because we've invested in ourselves. And also, I think at that point, it makes guys work a little bit harder. I mean, we all sell this thing and represent it, a little bit stronger when you've invested time, energy, and your own resources into it.
Absolutely. And so now the Black Lives Matter patches for home and away uniforms, and then I believe the coaches will have Black Lives Matter pins to wear. So how far are you guys in that? How much of a reality is the patches now for the upcoming season?
Yeah, we're getting closer. We've had a great dialogue, with the leadership of the Big East, Val Ackerman and Stu Jackson. And it's important that we do this the right way, right? There's steps to it. We have to be sensitive to all the different things that are going on in each community and the timing of it all. But we're really confident that this is going to be real. And I think the biggest thing, again, going back to our players, this is about our players. I think all these resources that we try to pump into our programs is about giving the best opportunity experience for our guys. Well, this helps heal them. I mean, there's a bunch of the guys in our league that are going through a lot and have seen a lot, or their family's seen a lot, or they just experienced a lot. And it motivates them to want to do something. Well, we're letting this speak for itself. And I think also it's important, to also note that our league has always been in this situation where they have spoken out. The coaches in our league have always used their platform to try to create some type of social change or try to better their communities. And I've said it a couple times. I mean, we've done this and we stepped out of this because of guys like John Thompson. I mean, we really are running in his footsteps because this is what he did. And this is what we saw as young boys, right? Now we're in these opportunities. We're in this league. We're motivated through that. And I think the league identifies with it. I think Stu Jackson identifies with it. I think Val identifies with it. And I think everybody that's a part of our league understands that this is what's needed. And again, we go into the homes and we're selling a message to our kids about our league, about our programs, about our schools, about our communities. Well, this Black Lives Matter patch, it upholds all that stuff I just.
No question about it. And you must have read my mind, and you kind of segued into that, because when I saw this initiative, it took me back. So I'm a little older than you are. So it did take me back to John Thompson, John Chaney, Nolan Richardson, who had these platforms back in the day. And, Big John walking off the court at Georgetown, boycotting games because of Proposition 42. You know what I mean? Back in the early 90s. So, that's what it reminded me of. And, I feel like we need more of that in the game. There are platforms out there now. We got social media now, so we can reach the masses with anything that we want to do. So as a former coach at Georgetown and an alumni of Providence College in the Big East, have you guys reached out to John about, possibly getting involved with this cause?
Well, for us, it was about the head coaches, the ADs, and the presidents. And then, we want to make sure we go about this slowly and do it right. I think we sent our message out and it was received with open arms. And there's a lot of people that are aware of who we are and what we're trying to do. We want to make sure we do get each one of our initiatives set in place. Again, build it the right way and then bring people in. I think there's been so many people that have tried to partner with us or join it. And it's not that we don't want anybody to. We're going to bring people in and allow people to support us. And we want to do it the right way and we're ready to do it. And I think that's been intentional. And it's something, every step of this, every tweet, every thought has been intentional. And it may have been a little bit slower for other people, but it's the right speed for us because we want to grow this the right way. And I think, again, when you talk about somebody like John Thompson, because of the work that he's done, when you go to John Thompson, you got to go to him correct. And it can't be at the wrong time. There can't be any questions or missteps. And that's something that we've thought about taking into an account. And also, it's important that we represent the three Black coaches, assistant coaches from Georgetown the right way. So I think we've thought about it. We want to do certain things like you just mentioned, but we want to do it at the right time.
Nah, that makes a lot of sense. So we talked about student athletes speaking out, and how are you guys encouraging them? Because we talk about these social media platforms, and your student athletes have these platforms. I talked to Keith Stevens on here in one of my episodes, and we talked about student athletes encouraging people on their platform to get out and vote, because they have a following as well. How are you guys educating them on how to use their platforms, just like you guys are doing?
Yeah, I think right now with, the potential for name, image, and likeness to be coming up pretty soon, it's important no matter what that we educate our guys how to use their platforms, how to build their brands, how messages that they could have posted in the past could hurt them, hurts their value. Again, it hurts how their messages are received. So we've been, intentional in our program, and I know we've talked about it in some of our meetings, that it's important our kids really understand what they're tweeting and what they're putting out. Conversely, though, I think there's an opportunity here, and you've seen more kids use that platform, right? To write an essay, to write a message, to retweet something, to post something. And some of it's really emotional and it's powerful. But the crazy thing is when you look at the impressions that those messages have, you realize how many people are watching and following them. And there's a power in that. We just have to educate our guys to make sure that they're saying it and doing it at the right time. But I've been so impressed throughout our league. We have a couple guys in our program. I know Providence does, Villanova does, with guys that have said things. They've retweeted things. They've been interviewed. I mean, it's been so impressive to watch these kids stand there like grown men, honestly, and have real grown men conversations. And it's inspiring in its own right.
So, obviously, the Big East, you guys being from the Big East Conference, you guys kind of got out ahead of this. You know what I mean? Are you guys doing anything? Like, are you talking to coaches from other conferences to do the same? Or like you said, a lot of people have come to you and asked to be a part of it. It's not that we don't want you to. We're just trying to make sure that we got a solid foundation. So talk about other conferences, and have you guys reached out to other conferences to kind of do the same? Because it's an initiative, but this thing can be a movement and gain a lot of steam.
Yeah, I mean, we look at it, and I think it's something that people have said. For us, Coaches for Action, it's not a moment. We're not looking for a moment. We're looking for a movement, and that movement, again, is sustainable. and it's here to last. There have been leagues that have reached out, assistant coaches that have engaged us. But again, our message has been consistent, is that we have to get our stuff done first before we can do anything else. It wouldn't be right, again, to the ADs, to the head coaches, to the presidents, to us as a group and an organization, to start bringing people in before we've addressed our own things that we set out to do. Yeah. So, we have goals, again, establishing our foundation, and then, getting this third initiative done with the patch, the BLM patch, approved and put out into the media, and joined by all the institutions. Once we do those things, then we can talk about other people that we can impact and hopefully inspire to do other things. But most importantly, we're worried about the 11 institutions and all the members that represent them.
No question about it. So what are, we talked about all the good that could come out of this. Talk about some of the obstacles, that you guys face throughout this process. Because, it can't all, you're getting an outpouring of love, but there's always some hiccups along the way.
Yeah, I mean, you come up with a name, right? You come up with an idea, you get a website, you get things rolling. But, it's hard because once you go out there, you don't know how you're going to be received. Getting everybody to agree, getting 21 guys to come get on the same page about something is really hard. Who's going to run the meetings? Who's going to do this? Those are all obstacles. Then again, I think the hardest thing is these hard conversations we had to have with our head coaches, with the ADs, with the presidents, with the Big East commissioners and leadership there in New York. But I think when we got to the table and started to articulate our story and our whys and why we were doing this and how we thought this should go, I think the light bulb was going off for everybody that in some ways this helps, people address what's going on in society and carrying the conversation on and helping things on their campuses. So I think there were some obstacles, but as you start to dig in deeper, there really isn't an obstacle. We looked at it as there's an opportunity. And I think that was the most important thing. And once you saw the opportunity, you don't look at it as an obstacle. It's just, how do we connect the dot from where we are to where we're trying to go? And it's just been tremendous, watching everybody grow, watching our group come a little bit tighter. This 21 guys, Coach Thomas from Providence said it today, we're all teammates now. We're joined. And if we get this thing done, we're going to be linked together forever, because we're going to be able to say, hey, we started and motivated this idea, and it could take off to so many different things. And it's not just about the patch. I think we're also super passionate, and I think that gets lost a little bit. What we can do with this foundation, what we can do with this organization. Again, it can inspire people, it can motivate people, it's going to educate people, it's going to make young men and women better. And that's our goal, and that's our job to do as assistant coaches in one of the best basketball leagues in the country.
No question about it. So you kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, this has been going on for a while, you know what I mean? And I think, we've kind of put Band-Aids on things, you know what I mean? But we need something that's going to be sustainable over time in order to bring change, you know what I mean? Like, we can't just get angry, like you said, for the moment, you know what I mean? So again, you kind of touched on it earlier. Listen, you might get a job in the SEC in the future, and you started this thing. How does that work to be self-sustaining? Like, I mean, your goal is to become a head coach one day. Do you stay involved in this initiative? How do you bring somebody else in underneath? Is it, you know what I mean? Like, how do you do that? Like, how do we sustain this, that 20 years from now, when you look back on it, it's still happening?
Well, the first thing is partnering with the league. Again, the league sees the value. The Big East, the league office sees value in what we're trying to do. That's the first step. And then the second step is there's another wave of leadership come up through our league. The four of us started it, brought the group together. We're coming up with ideas. But as we've started to talk, there's some ideas in that group. They're probably stronger than our ideas. Well, that's the next wave of guys. And then the next guys that come as assistants into our league, they're going to be brought in. And at some point, somebody's going to clear their throat and step up and talk. And you're going to say, that's the guy for this moment. Because there's initiatives and things that need to get addressed today. The world's going to tell us what we can do next. The league's going to tell us what the opportunity is next. It could be an AD. It could be a student. It could be a student athlete will tell us the direction we should go. Somebody's going to have the passion, and they're going to go. And that's fine. It's not about any one of us. It's about the collective. It's about the 21 of us. Nobody has an agenda. Nobody's trying to get anything out of it. We're just passionate about what we're trying to do, and we're super excited to be able to impact the group. And again, the biggest thing we built this on and believe in, it's here to stay. We want to make sure, when we're just out there in the stands watching games, old men, we look down and say, oh, that's the next group of guys from Coaches for Action. And we said, like, hey, we can kind of high five each other. Like, we started that. And that's important. And I think that's something that is dear to our heart because, again, guys did this before. I mean, there's people that have put groups together that have lasted years. And that's the reason why we have the opportunities that we have right now, in the Big East. And I think the league understands the value of what we're trying to create.
Nah, no question about it. So 21 African minority assistant coaches, 11 Big East institutions. So you have the coaches level. Is a student athlete kind of panel going to be created? Like maybe a girl, a boy and a girl representative from each institution. Is that something that's in the works? Is that something that's, down the line?
Yeah, so we're in the process of launching some opportunities for all, again, student athletes to engage in, enhancement experiences, opportunities where we'll address some different things that I think, our kids are going through, not just socially, but just opportunities to be motivated, opportunities to learn about financial independence. We're going to do those. And then at that time and pretty soon, we're going to have player reps from each team that will engage in our conversations. And we want to make sure, again, it's got to be time efficient because our kids are out here doing a lot. They're playing basketball, they're playing sports, they're pursuing their academic, obligations. They're trying to be just regular young men and women, on college campuses. But we want to make sure that their voices are heard because one of the things, especially in sports, that gets lost sometimes is there's a lot of people that are so passionate about the kids and doing things right by the kids and this is what we should do. But guess who gets lost is the kids. Their voices are never included. So we were inspired by our kids. We engaged our kids. Now we want to bring them in and we want to be able to say, hey, our kids told us also to address this or to do that or to put our focus here because they're the ones that go through the experience. They're the ones that represent our programs. In reality, to be honest with you, it's their programs. They're not ours as coaches. It's their program. They're always going to be Providence Friars or Marquette Golden Eagles or Villanova Wildcats. They're going to carry that forever. And that's going to be something that's going to be branded to their heart. So we want to make sure that they're part of the conversation.
No question about it. So as we get ready to wrap up, usually when I do my quick hitters around this time. So I want to do some quick hitters with you, but I want to do it in a different type of format because of what we're talking about.
Okay.
So the first thing is, so we have three, I want to call them short-term goals. We got three initiatives that we want to accomplish right away. We got the voter registration, we have the scholarship fund, and we have the BLM patches for home and away uniforms. Is there a long-term goal that you would like to see? So we're trying to build and get it the way we want, but here's like the real long-term goal. Like when we get it to where we want it, this is what's going to be happening.
Yeah, I would say it's a scholarship, being able to endow that scholarship and knowing that it's going to be here for a long time. And it's going to take hard work. You're going to take, aligning a lot of relationships, getting a lot of support, and we're excited to get that both on a person-to-person, family to family, but we're also talking about corporate sponsors. We want to go big with it. We think we can do that. And again, providing content, not so much always in the season, but on the outside of the season where our guys can learn and grow. I think we always talk about all these things we want to be able to do for our players. I think it's lost. It's a hard business. It's a demanding business, but we want to make sure Coaches for Action can address some of those things. And again, we want to be a place that sometimes it's hard, for campuses or the league to address some of the things that are happening in our communities. We want to be able to do that. We want to be able to bridge that gap, and we want to be a resource, again, for our institutions and for our league. And then the last thing is, I'd say to you, is we want to be here to stay. I think the unique thing is, I think the Big East is one of the best leagues in the country. I would love for a guy to say, man, I want to not only coach in that league, but I want to be a part of Coaches for Action because I've seen the opportunities. I've seen the platform. I know I can develop and grow, but at the same time, I can use my voice in that league. And that's different. I don't know if all guys can say that. I think, we've been a little bit unique in that it's just our league right now. It's just our guys. It's the guys that go to war against each other are coming together to address something it's a battle. It's a real battle, but there's an opportunity in it. And I'll go back to what you asked me, earlier is, what were some of the obstacles? I don't look at it that way. We look at it as what are the opportunities, and we have some great ones in front of us.
No question about it. So then I usually ask sometimes, like, listen, if you could invite 3 people to dinner, who would they be? I want to flip that around a little bit and hope that you can divulge to me. Is there 3 individuals that you feel like, we touched on John Thompson a little earlier, but is there like, give me 3 individuals who you feel like if we could bring 3 individuals in, I think it could take it from good to great?
Wow, it's a really good question. I would love to be able to sit here and say, like, man, like if we could get President Obama, right, to be a part of this, right, and I think that's an easy one, to say you could bring him in and have him here. But I think a great person to have, again, is a guy like John Thompson, John Chaney. I think if they could come in and sit in on one of our meetings and say, hey, this is the direction for you to go. Because a lot of times our meetings, we turn to Lewis or Jeff Battle for wisdom because they've seen more than we have, right? Like we only know what we know. Well, they know more than us. They've seen more than us. So sometimes you need that wisdom. It would be great to have that, and also I think it would be great to turn to those guys and say, thank you. Thank you for doing all the work that you did so we could be here. We're trying to do some work so the next group of guys can be here. It's what you do. It's what we're required to do in our business. That's why we're in it, right? We're blessed with all this stuff, but you also got to hit pause sometimes and get back and lay a track or build a path or build a bridge for the next group of guys. And then, the last guy, that I'd say to you that we want to bring to the table, or the last person, and I think we've engaged that person, is we have a star and a woman by the name of Renee Spellman. That's, kind of our day-to-day project manager who's been terrific, for us, and trying to help us just drag this thing along. Because we're basketball coaches. We don't know anything about fundraising and this and that. She's been terrific. She has been absolutely terrific in helping us, do what we're doing. And if I had to go with one person, one other person, I would say John Lewis, who just passed, just hearing his messages, seeing what he represents,
Yes.
Seeing how he fought, seeing what he fought for, seeing how he was received. And I think that's important. It's hard to do the things that some people are trying to do if you're not received well in your community, in the community you represented. And I think for us, our group, luckily for us, I think we're received the right way. I think people respect our messages, respect our efforts. But to have a guy like that sit there and tell you, again, it's going to be some hard days, but here's what you have to go through. Here's the resiliency that you're going to need to get this accomplished. And then once you do get accomplished, it's not time to celebrate. You got to keep going, and that's our thing. Like, it's not, do we want to sit there and say, okay, we got the patches through, great. Now we need to take that and now we got to keep going. We got to amplify our message. We got to do more. We have to grow further. We have to touch more people. I think that's how we see it. And luckily we're motivated, inspired, and pushed, amongst a great group of men. And again, not just coaches, they're great men. There's 21 great men that are living their life the right way. And we're just trying to do a little bit of positive work into the world.
No question about it. That's beautiful. So a couple things. Number one, how can my viewers follow Coaches for Action?
Yeah, right now, I would say the best way is through Instagram or Twitter. Coaches for Action is the handle, or www.coachesforaction.org, FOR.org. Is a way you can go on. You can also upload your information. You can show your support that way. And again, we're growing the right speed for us. I think there's a desire to like connect the dot or hitch the wagon to what we're doing. We want to grow a certain way in a way that we can handle it. So we're excited about that. But I'd say those are the 3 ways. I think the best way you can show support right now is an impression, a like, a retweet, follow our accounts, follow our journey. But you're going to be really excited that what could happen over the next 2 to 3 weeks in terms of what we're trying to do. And then once we hit it, we're never going to look back. But I think there's a huge appetite for what we're doing. People have been really responsive. and we're excited about that. And I think it's also inspired people to do more things. I do think since we launched on June 22nd, we have noticed more people doing things, saying things, and we're not saying that we're the reason why, but we like to think that we gave them the confidence or the motivation to get out and say some things in the public and use their platform as well.
No question. So, I told you that we here at Positive Impact wanted to get involved right away. You and I talked about, riding bikes together, like, what I'm saying?
That's my thing. I'm riding tomorrow, 6:15. I'm out. I'm getting my 22 miles in tomorrow morning.
Yes, indeed. So just yesterday, we had our first annual bike-a-thon. We rode 30 miles yesterday to raise money for scholarships for our program. And a portion of the proceeds are going to go to Coaches for Action. We raised $9,518, and Positive Impact will be making a $1,000 contribution to the Coaches for Action Scholarship Fund. So I thank you for that opportunity.
That's awesome, man. And we appreciate it greatly. To know that people believe in what we're trying to do is huge. To know that you're doing your own positive work in your community, again, your corner of the world, is huge. And then again, knowing that we have each other's back, great things can happen. And we really appreciate it because, getting this thing off the ground is hard. And I think it's a lot easier for people to kind of jump on when it's flying in the air, but we need that boost. And this is huge, man. This is really huge. And I hope, as we go, we can get back on here. And again, we go from a small audience to a big audience, and we can keep building from there.
No question. No question. DK, man, I appreciate you, man, your time and coming on, and we're going to be in touch. This thing opens up, when y'all come out here to St. John's, we got to get there.
Nah, we get you there right behind the bench with a T-shirt rooting for.
That's what I'm saying. I need my 3X, baby. I need my 3X.
Right now, we don't want that TV support. We want right behind the bench support. It might be 6 feet distance, but we'll make it work.
We're gonna make it happen, man. I appreciate you, man, and we're gonna be in touch. You and your family stay safe.
Yeah, you stay safe too. We'll talk again soon, man. I appreciate you.
Appreciate it.
All right, brother.
All right.